piece away and he can make a move, which I don't think he does, and I don't think he'll be able to. I think he kind of tears this down, tries to get some young players, tries to get some draft picks, and then tries to rebuild in a couple years through free agency and through the draft.
That's interesting because the extension that Kyle Lowry just got, I think you had mentioned last week when we previewed the Atlantic Division that you think that that might make it easier to trade him because it takes one less big player off the free agency market, and teams may be willing to give up more knowing there's an extra year on Lowry's contract, and the guy could still play. I mean, you saw how great he was in the finals, kind of being that third cog behind Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam. So he's not done yet, folks, and I think that that extra year to his deal definitely added some incentive for any team looking to acquire him that may need point guard help. Looking at you, Lakers.
That would be a heck of a fit if he ended up on the Lakers. I mean, I'm not sure they can make the math work, but yeah, that would be something. But on the less positive side, Jason, I mean, getting traded, most of these guys aren't going to be mad. It's that's the way the league's going. On the other hand, getting fired is not something you're looking for. And I'm going to let you kind of take this one, but who do you think, Jason, will be the first head coach fired?
So this was an interesting category that I wanted to add in because you look at the baseball season that just ended, right? And a third of the teams in the league got rid of their managers. You look at the coaching carousel in the NFL, always revolving. The NBA, there's a bit more job security, but you've seen tons of coaches on the hot seat in years past. I mean, look at Tyronn Lue getting fired like 6 games into the year last year, and now he finds himself on Doc Rivers' bench after he was spurned for the Lakers job. So that's why I wanted to add this. And then you and I were talking before the show, and you had mentioned that there really aren't too many coaches on the hot seat as the NBA currently stands because there are so many contending teams right now. But I'm going to pick from one of those contending teams, and I'm going to say that if any coach is going to get fired first, even if it's not during the season, it's going to be Mike D'Antoni because I think he's on his last legs in Houston. And if the James Harden Russell Westbrook pairing doesn't pay dividends off in year one, I think D'Antoni will be out the door and the Rockets will be looking for a new head coach.
So I'm going to predict that during the regular season, there is no NBA head coach who gets fired. Um, I mean, all bets are off once the postseason comes, once the season's over, and so on. But I don't think anyone's going to get fired during the season. I actually feel fairly confident when you look around the league. I think the Rockets are one option, but I don't think it's going to happen because I think the Rockets are going to win 55, maybe more games. I think they're going to be a really good regular season team. So my prediction is none of those guys get fired, Jason. And I think we have one last thing that we're kind of bringing back from last year, Jason. So
Yeah,
we had our marquee matchups a year ago, and we're just going to go through these pretty quickly just for this first week of the season. What are some big matchups? The first one that comes to mind, we mentioned the Trailblazers before, Jason. Uh, the Nuggets obviously played against Portland last year. Portland came out on top and then got swept by the Warriors. But this is a kind of a rematch of that series. It's in Portland, and that's on Wednesday night. And I think that'll be a really good chance for us to see how these teams have come together. Obviously, Denver's kept most of their pieces. Portland's had a little bit of a facelift. So maybe some revenge for Denver. And meanwhile, we'll get to see how Portland looks.
absolutely. And I think a nice placeholder for this pick would have been Lakers Clippers. But since there were only 2 games tonight while we are recording this podcast, we are going with Wednesday and on, as we will be doing every week here on Baseline Jumpers. So I think Denver and Portland is a nice one to slide in there and replace Lakers Clippers to start the year. The Western Conference Finals matchup, as you said, the rematch. So our second one will be played on Thursday, the 24th. And this is a nice, fun East-West clash to start the year. And I'm going with Bucks at Rockets. You know, we mentioned D'Antoni potentially being the first coach to get fired. He's facing a team with a lot of lofty expectations themselves in the Bucks with the reigning MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, a brand new supporting cast. We get to see the Russell Westbrook James Harden pairing in the regular season for the first time since their days in Oklahoma City. So I think that's a great way to start TNT's Thursday night NBA coverage with a headbanger.
Yeah, and then the last one we had here is Utah playing at the Lakers. This is going to be a really great matchup because Utah really improved in the offseason, and the Lakers, obviously, we all know what's going on with the Lakers. So Anthony Davis, LeBron James, enough said. That's on Friday night. So for those of you who don't have any big plans on Friday night, you can sit at home and watch that game as they play
I'll
in the
be
Staples
watching
Center.
Knicks Nets. Actually, I might be able to do both because if the Knicks play at 7:30, the Lakers play at 10. I'm watching basketball for 5 hours straight. I decided.
All right, I love it. Well, we reviewed this a little last week, but just to kind of finalize our picks, me and Jason are just gonna go through our playoff picks and our picks for who will win the title. Um, I have in the East the Sixers, Bucks, Celtics, Nets, Heat, Pacers, Bulls, and Magic. And in the West, I have the Clippers, Rockets, Jazz, Nuggets, Blazers, Warriors, Lakers, Spurs. So I see the Pelicans missing out, as well as the Kings and a few of those other teams. How about you, Jason?
So in the East, I have the Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, Nets, Raptors, Heat, Pacers, and Hawks. I'm sorry, Ben. I know, at least I've been honest from the beginning. I don't think the Bulls are there. I think they're another year away. So what you think of the Bulls, I think of Atlanta. I think their young core is exciting to watch with Cam Reddish joining a nice young group. You're going to see Vince Carter's final season, and I think they ultimately get in. I know everyone's pegging the Magic as like a borderline Eastern Conference contender, not just a playoff contender. I don't see it. The Pistons already, Blake Griffin's out opening night nursing an injury. They don't have much else on the roster. I don't think the Reggie Jackson, Derrick Rose pairing will work. At point guard, Andre Drummond is a very good center, but Blake Griffin's another guy who could ultimately be traded if things go south in Detroit. And then the Bulls, I think this time next year, I'll be pegging them a playoff team. I need to see what they do this year before I peg them. So those three are out along with the Knicks, Hornets, Cavs, and Wiz. No chance. Now, the West gets a little more interesting because I made a change given the news that Klay Thompson may not come back at all this year after he tore his ACL during the finals, one game after Durant tore his Achilles. So the news coming out of the Bay Area early this week saying that Klay may miss the entire season and not come back in February. So I made a change. I have the Lakers, Clippers, Rockets, Jazz, Blazers, Nuggets, Spurs, and Pelicans because the Pelicans are my up-and-coming team, and I think they'll need a healthy Zion to make the playoffs in the West. I ultimately think they get there, which, Benjamin, leaves the Warriors, the dynasty that was, on the outside looking in. Now, if Klay comes back, then I will swap the Warriors for the Spurs, but if Klay's out the whole year, I'm saying the Warriors finish ninth.
Yeah, I mean it's a solid pick. I don't think there's anyone there that I can quibble with. I mean I made one pretty bold pick here, which is that I have the Raptors missing the playoffs because again I sort of feel like Masai Ujiri is going to tear this thing down. I have this funny feeling that Lowry is not going to last the season in Toronto, and I think if he doesn't, that's going to make it tough for them to make the playoffs with what they've got in the roster. And I think if he leaves, it's going to be open season on Gasol and Ibaka, especially with so many teams trying to compete for the title. And just when I look at this year, Jason, I see a lot of teams who fashion themselves as contenders and who might be willing to give up a first round pick, might be willing to give something up in order to get one of those guys. And I just think Ujiri's going to look around and say, what? I can get 2 first round picks for Kyle Lowry? Okay, sign me up. And then maybe get another first rounder for Ibaka, another one for Gasol. All of a sudden, you're hoarding draft picks. You get the ammunition you need to kind of build around this team. I really think that's a possibility. And unless they get off to a really hot start, I think that's going to be tough for them to keep together. But at any rate, let's move on to the most important pick of all, Jason, the NBA champions. I'm going to lead this one off. I have the Philadelphia 76ers winning the 2020 NBA championship. I think they get there on the back of their defense. Joel Embiid, a big improvement from Ben Simmons. I just see this team as being historically good defensively. As long as they don't miss too many games with injuries, I think they're going to really rest their guys. I just think the defensive talent, the length this team has, Matisse Thybulle has been a menace in the preseason for them. He scared poor Luke Kennard to death. Luke Kennard was looking over his shoulder almost as he was shooting jumpers with the way that he was getting hounded. I think that's going to help them. I think they're going to get a lot of easy buckets in transition. I kind of like to see if we can even see a little bit of a Zaire Smith sighting. I think that if he can get in there and get a little time, that's going to really help him sort of develop. And I think he could be good for this team given how athletic he is and his ability to guard point guard. So for me, I like this team. I like the way it's put together. I think Brett Brown's an underrated coach, and I also just like that they're coming out of the East, which is a much easier conference. Picking someone out of the West is a lot more of a crapshoot this year. So I kind of like getting someone out of the East who I feel pretty good about. So I'm going Sixers.
Well, I like playing craps, so I'm picking a Western Conference team, and I know you've been high on the Sixers. It's a good pick for you. You were singing their praises last week when we previewed the Atlantic. I'm going with the Clippers. I think Rivers gets Coach of the Year. I think while they're going to be load managing Kawhi and Paul George, I think they're going to come together in the postseason at the right time. I love their supporting cast with Pat Beverly and Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams and JaMychal Green and Mo Harkless and all these depth guys that they have. I think this team is absolutely loaded from top to bottom, and I think ultimately Kawhi Leonard will cement his place as one of the best to ever do it by winning 3 different championships and 3 finals MVPs with 3 different teams.
It's a great pick, and I do have them making the finals, but I just don't feel quite as confident. I think it's a harder road to get there, and I worry a little bit that, with the injuries they've had to guys like George and Leonard, I mean, it's easy for a turned ankle or a hurt knee to kind of derail the season for them, and they just have to get by so many better teams. So I just feel more confident with the Sixers because I think they'll have an easier path to get there. But I think that wraps it up for us today, Jason. Do you have anything else for the people before we go?
Just embrace the fact that the NBA is back, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the games. They count now. It's been a very entertaining back and forth game in the first one with the Pelicans and the Raptors. I'm going to try and stay up as late as I can and check out the Lakers and the Clippers. See Anthony Davis in his first regular season game. See Kawhi Leonard and his with their LA teams. Just enjoy. We've been talking about the offseason and previewing for 3 months now, and it's finally time to talk some real-time NBA regular season basketball. I look forward to doing this with you every week, Ben. We are inching ever so closely to episode 100. So I'm going to let you steal the thunder tonight. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review.
5 stars only.
And we'll be back next week with another show. Enjoy the games, ladies and gentlemen.